She was going to take the kids. She's going to leave me. I know. You know?
Not knowing when something is over can lead to some bad decisions. Decisions that have ruined some of these characters' lives forever. For example, Billy not knowing to end his affair with Aaron and Jason finding out and not accepting the fact that Aaron didn't want to be in their relationship anymore, all led to him brutally killing Billy, setting off a chain of events that we're watching unfold. Welcome back, where today I'll be breaking down episode 4 of Taz, titled All Roads. In this episode, we see how these characters' bad decisions have caught up to them as we say goodbye to Cliff. We also finally get the answer to who's the mole within the task force, or did we? We've got a lot to talk about in this episode, so let's discuss it and break it all down. Full spoilers ahead. As the title implies, we open this episode with seeing the road as Tom is driving while trying to remember the path that led him to this point where he doesn't know who he can trust. As he's replaying what Joe told him in last week's episode that he has a mole in his team and how he was told to suspect everyone. As we cut to Tom being introduced to Tony's chief by the name of Michael Dorsey. Inside, Tom wastes no time. He briefs a group of volunteers from Anthony's department on their primary targets, which are Cliff and his unknown accomplice. The game plan is laid out, and everyone is instructed to be on high alert. This includes Tom himself, who wrestles with the terrifying possibility that every detail shared could be shared with the Dark Hearts by their eternal leak. Now, it's important to note that Aaliyah shows Ray's phone to everybody. Now, knowing what we find out later, I'm to assume that this is the actual phone and it hasn't been switched out at this point in the episode. Meanwhile, Cliff displaced after the police raid on his house, he's now staying with Robbie. Paying attention to this small but critical detail, Cliff tells Robbie that he couldn't sleep, a detail that becomes critical later in this episode. Robbie has already set the wheels in motion for their escape to Canada, confirming a meeting with his connect Bartos later that day. It's here we get to see up close and personal on just how the relationship goes between Perry, who's now at Donna's house, as he's looking through old photo albums dating back to 2017 shootout. He's doing this to maybe get some clues to who's their mole inside the Dark Hearts. Now, their relationship seems to be dictated by Perry coming and going as he pleases. Basically, he's a hookup buddy, and Donna calls him out on this behavior. Now, even though we see Donna and Perry having this little morning routine, I still have a feeling that she's involved with Aaron and Billy's situation, and I think she might be looking for a way to have Perry be taken out as well. Now, we see Perry spots a picture of Billy and Maeve, but he dismisses it without a second thought. Remember that for later. Now, Perry receives a message from Vincent, who's letting him know that he's outside. Now, it's here we gain a significant insight into the eternal workings of the Dark Hearts. Now, Perry shares his suspicions about their mole from within and that someone's making the situation personal, and they may have ties to Jason, but he has yet to figure it out. Now, you can just tell that Vincent's an important guy, and he has high ranks by the way he's talking to Perry, as he tells Perry about the recent conversation with the Mother Club, and they basically want Jason out. Vincent yells at Perry after he asks for more time, but it's too late. This hit has been made for Friday, and there's nothing Perry can do about it, regardless of how he feels about Jason. Now, this conversation, charged by Vincent's authority, to me implies that the Mother Club is not only targeting Jason, but also potentially Perry for having placed Jason in charge to begin with. Now, my question is, will Perry intervene to what's going to happen to Jason on Friday, or will he just let it happen? Now, cutting to Emily, we see her with her school counselor again, and we hear her talk about Sarah's relationship with both her mom and her brother Ethan before the tragedy happened. She recalls Sarah's ultimatum. Either Ethan goes or she goes.
She said that if they continued to live in Ethan's war zone, that's what she called it, a war zone.
Now, Emily, despite her loyalty to her brother, she understands Sarah's desire to reclaim the happiness their family had before Emily and Ethan entered the picture. Emily shares how she feels she's supposed to always have this sense of appreciation and gratitude as an adopted child. This feeling often prevented her from expressing her other more complex emotions, as the counselor gently reminds Emily that her adoption wasn't her choice and she shouldn't have to carry this burden of this unfortunate situation. Now look, I can acknowledge perhaps this particular plot might not be the most compelling for some of you all out there. To me, this plotline theme is the true heart of the show. To me, this whole subplot kind of dives into the consequences of individual mistakes. From Ethan's actions destroying his family, to Billy's relationship with Aaron leading to his death at Jason's hands, which in turn sparked Robbie's robberies. The episode's title, All Roads, perfectly encapsulates this theme. It's an exposition of human emotion, forgiveness, and how profound love can persist even amongst unimaginable pain. Now, it's here that we return to Tom, who briefs Kathleen on a leak within the task force. Kathleen, however, remains unconvinced, dismissing the notion and insisting they proceed as usual. But here's the problem. The moment Tom leaves, we watch Kathleen pull out her cell phone, not her work phone, and makes a call stating that we have a problem. Now, let's play devil's advocate. Kathleen could simply be calling her higher-ups within the department about this potential leak and getting an internal investigation started, but again, the use of her personal cell phone rather than the official line strongly suggests that she's bypassing official channels to communicate with an unseen party. Now, with all that said, giving credit where credit is due, I don't have the names in front of me right now, but I mentioned it in my past breakdowns how some of you all in the comments section have called out that Kathleen is the leak, and goddammit, you all called it, you all were right, and my Tony suspicions can go to rest, at least for now. Some of you all have mentioned in the comments that maybe it's a member of the task force, but instead it might be Kathleen. Theory being that she's been forced to retire recently and she's maybe secretly working with the Dark Hearts and making money on the side to feed them information. Now later in the episode, we get more evidence to Kathleen being the leak a little bit later, but if she is indeed the mole, the burning question remains, who will be the one to expose her? Now speaking of leak, back to Perry, he pays a visit to Shane. Shane tells Perry how things have been different since Billy's death and how a lot of members within the Dark Hearts weren't happy by how things went down between Jason and Billy, and that being that Jason killed Billy. This whole time, Perry was under the assumption of this story. Billy was said to have stolen money from the Dark Hearts, leading to his demise. However, Shane, grappling with this troubled conscience, reveals the truth. The real motive for Billy's murder was the affair with Aaron, which Jason discovered. Now, Shane's timing is key here. As he suggests, the recent string of robberies has made them feel like they're cursed. Now, in my eyes, if you're Perry, this lie demands Jason to be removed. Yet, we see Perry wrestling with the same confusing thoughts that plague Tom and Emily. They're all struggling with this inability to abandoning a loved one, despite the clear and escalating danger they pose. This loyalty, while misguided, seems to be Perry's fatal flaw that can potentially lead to his downfall. Now, following last week's Tom flashback, episode 4 gives us a glimpse into the past through Robbie's eyes back when Billy was alive. This scene is bright and happy and centered on the family in the water, a visual symbol of Billy's unifying presence. Now we watch as everyone's having fun except for Robbie's wife Karen, who looks like she would rather be anywhere else but here. Now we watch as Billy and Robbie talk about Robbie's relationship issues and how Karen told him that she feels like she's suffocating in their relationship, but also feels like she's suffocated by their kids. Now, Robbie knows his relationship is over, but he's afraid to leave his wife despite the fact that Karen's been left this relationship, as Billy even points this out. Now, this, like last week's flashback, is brief, but it tells us so much about these relationships. You can see how Billy was basically the glue that kept his family together, and Robbie valued his opinion and looked up to Billy in a way, even though Billy himself wasn't a perfect man, as we see Aaron arrives. Robbie mentions how he thought their relationship was over, but Billy tells him he tried, but clearly he didn't try hard enough. From the flashback to the present scene was a seamless, powerful cut from this bright memory to the dark, hopeless presence where we find Cliff and Sam in the water, establishing the heavy toll Billy's death has taken on Robbie's emotional state. Now, Robbie gets a text from Bartos to meet up. Now, before leaving, it's here that Sam tells Robbie he's ready to go home, this setting off alarms for both Robbie and Cliff, adding more pressure to the situation. Now, Robbie meets with his connect, leaving Cliff and Sam alone in the car. Now, as I mentioned earlier, exhausted from the troubles, we see Cliff takes a nap. In doing so, Sam decides to get out of the car to release the fish they caught earlier. Now, Sam attempts this simple act of compassion while this concerned man approaches, questioning Sam's lack of supervision. Now, Robbie returns and immediately panics because he doesn't know where Sam is. But not much long after, Sam and the guy arrive, and the guy asks Robbie if he's Sam's father. Now, Robbie instinctively shouts yes, while Sam states no. We watch as the guy grabs Robbie but takes a photo before Robbie starts beating him up. Cliff has to grab Robbie off the guy and throws his phone into the woods, but the damage is already done. Now, not to make excuses for Robbie, but I would imagine he was boiling inside and this was just a moment for him to finally explode. Now, I still think that Sam's connections with the deer will come into play at some point, but here, seeing Sam's connection to this helpless fish is just an example of how I feel his empathy, while noble, will be a critical component for either Sam getting hurt or killed, or in this case, almost getting Robbie caught. Now, the boiling anger continues as Perry, with a chain wrapped around his hand, confronts Jason at Donna's bar. Now we watch as Perry punches Jason in the face, and this natural sense of violence between them seems to be very common. Jason shares the news with tonight's meeting with Cliff, but more importantly, he reveals why he actually killed Billy to Perry. Erin was not just going to leave him, she was going to take the kids. Think about how Robbie has made sense of justifying his robberies. Now, look at Jason's justification. In his mind, it's rooted in protecting his status as a father and keeping his family together. Again, this is just another example in my eyes how these characters' bad decisions are finally catching up with them. Now again, kind of similar to Sam's empathy, this scene shows us the danger of Perry's empathy. To me, Jason kind of knows how to manipulate Perry, and I think Perry kind of knows this, but he uses his family as an excuse for his actions. Perry's willingness to process and forgive this depth of deception to me suggests that his loyalty towards Jason is indeed the crisis point that will eventually catch up to him as well. Now, in the background, two important subplots continue. We see Tom furthers his investigation into the mole by questioning Tony about his entry into the force, keeping his internal threat alive. Meanwhile, we see Emily at work, and call it peer pressure or simply just wanting to be a teenager and not having to think about her life at the moment, we see she joins her co-workers and heads off to a party. For me, this points to a form of escapism within this family. Thinking about Sarah having these large bottles of red wine, or thinking about Tom and his alcohol problems, seeing her own father and her sister relying on alcohol for temporary relief, Emily turns to drinking herself. Now, finding Emily drunk later in this episode, I really hope this isn't setting up Emily continuing to drink and it causing her to making a decision that could have major repercussions. Now, back at Robbie's, he tells Maeve the plan he set up for them to leave across the border after they receive the money tonight. Now, Maeve calls out all the things that won't be available to them and the kids down where Robbie wants to go, and she tells him straight up that she nor the kids will be coming.
You're not going to ruin their lives just because you ruined yours.
And gives him till morning to figure out what to do with Sam, or else she'll go and take care of it herself. Now, last week and this week, we didn't get a ton of Maeve, which is kind of unfortunate because I really like this character, but I have a feeling that we're going to get more of her next week. Now, speaking of ruining lives, Perry pays a visit to Erin while she's cooking dinner for her kids. By the way, knowing that Jason and Erin had kids together, because it was kind of up in the air in the last few episodes if she was just a girlfriend or if she was the mother of his children, and like I said, we just got that confirmed this episode, this just only adds more context to their relationship. And also, Perry is seen and is called uncle from these kids, which just adds to the fact that him and Jason are basically family. Now, Perry cuts straight to the heart of their marital problems and infidelity. Now, Erin admits to her having a thing with Billy, but quickly throws Jason's own affairs back in his face. However, Perry zeroes in on her threat to leave with the kids, highlighting the emotional leverage she held. He then pivots, giving her a chance to come clean about her potential involvement in the recent robberies. Now, Erin tries to play coy, but Perry basically lays out her entire plan.
Destroy his business, right? Ruin it so bad that the Mother Club sends me in to clean it up, get rid of him. You can fly away free as a bird, right?
Now, Perry grabs her by the throat, demanding the truth. But Erin, despite the pressure, doesn't break. She looks him in the eye and tells him that she had nothing to do with the robberies. Now, Perry then offers her a way out. A way to leave Jason and disappear with the kids somewhere that he'll never find them. But Erin doesn't take it, at least not yet. You know, thinking about seeing these parents putting their children at risk based on their bad decisions seems to be one of the themes in this episode. As we cut to Robbie dressed up, having fun with Harper's daughter in preparation for their father and daughter dance, which is coming up. Watching this scene and the previous scene with Erin and seeing the distinct differences from them being in parent mode and them being in fight or flight mode within minutes of each other. Think about this. Robbie just beat the hell out of a guy earlier in the episode and was just upstairs telling Maeve about leaving the country. Then compare that to Erin cooking dinner, helping her kids with their homework, and then being asked, and within minutes later, if she had anything to do with the recent robberies and if she's plotting to have her husband killed. Again, the stark contrast between the fight or flight and the parent modes underlines the immense pressure these characters are under. Now we get this heartfelt moment here where Harper tells Robbie that she's scared and she knows something's going on with her father and he's not telling her. And the feeling she has is similar to the one she felt when their mother left. Now this feeling of uncertainty led to Harper not buying a ticket for them to go to the dance because she thought her father wouldn't be interested. Now what follows is a beautiful and possibly bittersweet dance in their kitchen as Maeve watches from her room. I read Maeve watching them as her imagining and wishing that she could dance with her father, who we know is no longer with her. I also think that Maeve is maybe starting to understand why Robbie can't leave his kids and why she might not want to take them away from him. This again to me truly felt like this could be the last dance between Robbie and his daughter, as everything is finally catching up with Robbie. Now all roads have indeed led to this as we head over to the drug meetup. But first, we get a small moment of levity between Leah and Lizzie, highlighting their potential friendship and Aaliyah's impressive shooting skills, a detail I believe will definitely come back full circle at some point. Now, Kathleen arrives in a van with Tom, observing the exchange. She mentions not hearing anything about the possible mole and looks at him with a suspicious look, and this again could point to her being the leak. As Cliff and Robbie arrive in separate cars, we see Cliff pulls up, or at least who Tom thinks is Cliff, as Tom makes a critical decision to stop the car. Now, unfortunately, it turns out to be a couple looking for the dog, a major misdirection. Meanwhile, Cliff texts what he believes is Ray's phone, but it goes directly to Jason. Now, before breaking down what happens next, let's see if we're all on the same page here. Now, assuming that Kathleen is indeed the leak, which all evidence in this episode points towards that, are we to believe that she stole the phone from evidence and gave it to Jason at some point since last night when Ray was arrested? Also, back to Tony, again, that's not Ray's phone. You'll notice he seems to be using some other phone that uses the same network to access Cliff. But again, I'm going back to last week's episode. Ray said that him and Cliff would normally communicate via Snapchat, so maybe that's why we don't see any previous messages exchanged on the phone that Tony's currently using. Now, as I digress, sadly, the road that led Cliff to reaching out to Ray has led him to this ambush. As Cliff thinks the buyer is approaching, it's actually Perry and Jason. Now they rear in Cliff, who instinctively smashes his phone before desperately telling Robbie to leave. We watch as Cliff is chased off the road, and then we see Robbie frantically searching for him, but has no luck. Now back with the force, we see Tom looks on in frustration, still convinced that one of his own teams ruined this ambush, while Kathleen watches silently from behind him. Now, so that we're all on the same page, we're all in agreement that Kathleen is the mole, right? Or, again, let's play devil's advocate, is it just a show toying with us? I mean, the call in her office, the look she's given Tom throughout this episode just seems too obvious. She's the leak. Or is she? I'm just still hung up on the fact on when did she take Ray's phone from evidence. The reason I bring that up is the only characters we physically saw with that phone was Tony and Tom when they took it from Ray, and at the start of this episode in the evidence bag Aaliyah was holding. Again, is the show throwing us for the loop, or is it confirming that Kathleen is indeed the leak? Now, taking a breath from the intense chase scene that we just got, we switch gears to week 2 of Tony and Lizzie at the bar. This time around, they hit the dance floor, and the nickname Lizzie gave him is about to change, or at least he thinks is about to change, as they share a kiss and they head back to her place. Now, in the middle of an intimate moment, Tony stops. He expresses discomfort doing it in the same bed Lizzie shared with her ex-husband. Now, they have a laugh about this, and I'm assuming they had sex somewhere else in the house, but my guess is he stopped because he mentioned how the bed is a sacred place, and with all the conversations he's had with Tom and religion, maybe he stopped because of his religious beliefs, or maybe he's thinking about becoming a priest himself after all of this. Now, I predicted a romantic relationship between these two a couple weeks ago, and it's finally coming into fruition. However, I'm even more convinced that one of them will end up dead. Things are just going too good for them, and knowing the creators behind Mayor of Easttown are behind this show, and remembering what happened to the last police officers in a romantic relationship there, now my money is unfortunately on Lizzie potentially dying at some point. Thinking about her freezing up in last week's episode and her lack of specialized skills like Aaliyah, it feels like a tragic buildup to her either trying to save Tony, and maybe she does so, or she fails at doing so by not taking action, causing her to have a tragic ending. Now, as we come to an end of this episode, we return to Tom's house where Emily returns drunk. The tables have turned, with Tom now caring for his drunk daughter, and it's not the other way around. As Emily finally breaks down, having overheard Tom's conversation with Sarah the night before, and basically taking advice from her school counselor from earlier. She feels she can't express herself without shame, believing she should be grateful for being adopted, convinced that she and Ethan ruined their family. Now, from one tragic family to another, we see that Jason and Perry have kept Cliff alive and want to question him about what he knows, but also they want to know where the rest of the drugs are that are missing. Now, Cliff has been brutally beaten up, almost unrecognizable and barely able to speak. Yet, in defiance, he spits in Jason's face, refusing to give up Robbie. For a split second there, I thought that he was going to say that maybe Aaron was involved to kind of get back on Aaron, but again, if he did that, obviously it would lead back to Robbie. Now, Jason, without hesitation, wraps saran wrap over Cliff's face, slowly killing him. I do wonder, did Jason lose his temper in that moment, or was he simply just figuring out that he wasn't going to get anything from Cliff? Honestly, though, I think killing Cliff was a bit premature on their end, and also Perry just sitting there watching that happen. Will Vincent have any thoughts about this, or the other members of the Mother Club? Would they want to have kept Cliff alive so they can get as much information out of him? Either way, we do have to say goodbye to a character in this episode, and that is indeed Cliff. Again, think about how the road has led him to this point. If he would have never got Ray involved, he might still be alive. Now, he's dead. Another person close to Robbie, gone. Speaking of Robbie, we cut to him with the rest of the drugs as we see him tearing up. Now the question is, what does Robbie do with these drugs, and what does he do with Sam? As our final shots cut between Tom and Perry, both discovering something of critical importance. Tom is meticulously shifting through the team's files, desperately trying to unmask the mole. Now at the same time, Perry's doing his own detective work. He finds the same picture of Billy and Mae from earlier, and the detail emerges. Billy was holding the same gun Cliff had. As Perry is starting to connect the dots that Billy and Cliff knew each other, and he sets his sights on Maeve. Now to cap off this episode, Tom receives a call from Emilia. She shares the photo taken from the guy Robbie beat up earlier, confirming Sam is alive, but also revealing a glimpse of Robbie's face. As this net of lies, deception, regret, and bad decision making is tightening on everyone. Now, based on these final shots, you would think that Perry's first thought would be to find Maeve. Remember during the scene with Shane, he remembered Billy by saying that was our Billy, so it's safe to assume that his next steps is to pay Maeve a visit, which will be very interesting. Now for Tom, I would imagine there has to be cameras outside the building where Robbie was, and I would imagine they will probably get his license plate at the very least, or they'll probably interview Bartos. Now overall, I would say this was a solid episode, and this was basically the mid-season finale that sets up and leads into the final 3 episodes. I didn't find this episode as emotionally compelling as the past episodes, but the drug exchange scene mixed with the car chase sequence definitely had my full attention. Now again, I am in the camp that Kathleen is the mole, which was revealed in this episode, but I still feel the show purposefully didn't definitively say that she's 100% the mole, so there's still a chance that it could be someone else, and you all know my money's still on Tony. Now, to me, the Dark Hearts leak plot isn't as interesting because we knew before the actual characters involved did, so they're kind of playing catch up. But the question is, what will Perry do with this information? Will he warn Jason about the hit that's coming for him in a few days, or again, will he just allow it to happen? Will Tom find out it's Kathleen or someone else? What will Robbie do now with Cliff out of the picture, and what will he do about Sam? A lot of things I look forward to in the coming weeks. With that said, I think I've said everything I wanted to about this episode, which brings us to a conclusion of my breakdown of episode 4 of Task. Now it's time for you all to share your thoughts about this episode in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts about everything we discussed, from Kathleen officially being in the league, will Perry allow Jason to be taken care of, what will Robbie's next moves be? Let's talk about it all in the comments below. Now, if you all have made it to this point in the breakdown, I cannot thank you all enough for the continued support on these breakdowns. Do me a favor and put in the comments right now, #BadDecisions. Thank you all for watching or listening to this breakdown. If you all are watching this on YouTube, please do me a favor and hit that like button. And in doing so, also hit the hype button, which will allow this video to spread out to new audience members. Speaking of new audience members, don't forget to hit that share button and share this breakdown to anyone and everyone you know that's interested in talking about this show. And please consider subscribing to the channel for more task breakdowns and so much more. Now, if you all are listening to this podcast, I appreciate you all. If you could do me a favor, hit the like button, leave a review, and subscribe to the podcast. Don't forget, you all are awesome. Stay safe, and I'll see you all on next week's breakdown of episode 5 of Task.